Now let's get into some real talk. It's time for story time, everyone. Why don't we just dive right on in? Hey guys, welcome to my channel and happy New Year's Eve. We're wrapping up 2022 and I thought what I would do today in this video, since it happens to be New Year's Eve, I thought I would do a bit of a year in review of just some of the things from different pop culture medias that really grabbed my attention this year. And we can kind of go through them a blast from the past. Now, these won't be everything that's come out this year, or it might not be significant to you what I'm saying, but these were kind of the things that happened in 2022 that were impactful for me and that kind of came out in 2022. So why don't we get right into it? All right, so first I thought we would talk about movies. So there were a number of movies that came out this year, and the ones that really grabbed my attention, and I'll kind of go into an explanation as to why. The first one was Bros. Now, this was a very interesting movie. It's a typical rom-com, but it's actually from an LGBTQ2S plus perspective, because it's two gay men that are trying to tackle the relationships and will they, won't they, kind of like an average rom-com that we've seen throughout the years. So I enjoyed this movie. It has its faults, don't get me wrong, but I enjoyed this movie because it took your typical rom-com and flipped it and actually made it an LGBT one, which was nice to actually see for a change. And it wasn't your typical cliche about AIDS or death or just your typical gay best friend type of situation. So I really appreciate the movie for doing that and having an LGBTQ2S plus cast on it. The next movie would be Nope. Now, this is Jordan Peele's movie, his third installment. So we had Get Out, Us, and now Nope. Now, out of the three movies, I would say this was my least favorite, but I've seen it twice now, and I can come to appreciate the messaging that it's trying to get across. And it is very much a sci-fi-esque spooky movie. So I would recommend that you check it out. The cinematography is beautiful and the actors do an amazing job. Up next, I have the movie X. Now, this movie was kind of plastered all over the place. It was being advertised all the time. I was super excited to see it. And when I watched it, I was pleasantly surprised that it stood up to all the hype. It was such a well done movie. The acting and the actors were fantastic. Viewer be warned, it is a horror movie and has some gore in it. But I thought it was a wonderful take on the old 70s style movies. And it just did a fantastic job. Also, it talks about inner beauty, but also like physical beauty and how we age and then we no longer feel or come off as beautiful anymore. Very good movie. Up next, we have Scream 5. So this came out at the beginning of the year. So you might have forgotten that it even came out this year. Now, Scream 5 was an interesting movie. We were kind of rebooting back from the 2010s Scream 4, and it was going to be bringing back the legacy characters of like Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox and David Arquette, and bringing in a whole cast of new characters. And it actually was pretty good. Like I said, all these movies have their own flaws. There's never going to be a perfect movie, but I appreciated what they did and it was enjoyable to watch. So that was another movie for me. The last movie I'm going to talk about, I'm not sure if you follow my channel, you'll probably understand, is Halloween Ends. Now, again, like all the other ones, it's not a perfect movie, but it ends this new trilogy timeline from the Blumhouse production with the director David Gordon Green. And it was not a bad ending to the kind of like the trilogy, the franchise, we'll say. We had Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, which if you have Jamie Lee Curtis in it, you know it's going to do well. So we were able to bring back some legacy characters from the original 1978 Halloween. The same actors reportraying their own characters, now much older. So you got that sense of nostalgia still. They paid great homage to the other Halloween movies overall, just throughout the entire franchise. But Halloween Ends wasn't the greatest, but it's growing on me the more I watch it. It's kind of just like scratching its way in there. But those were the movies that really impacted me this year. So now we're going to do TV shows. And there's quite a few TV shows that came out this year that were good. And there's some other TV shows that have been out before, but their new seasons came out this year. And then there's one TV show I'm going to talk about that I just discovered this year. So the first TV show is Netflix, The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window. I had to look to make sure I was saying it right. Stars Kristen Bell, and it's kind of one of those satire thrillers in the sense of it's obviously making fun of movies like The Girl on the Train or The Woman Across the Window or things like that. But it's a silly movie, but it also is a whodunit. So definitely one I would recommend checking out if you want a good laugh and just to go along for the ride. Another one is The Cuphead Show. So it's taking a classic video game that came out that became super popular because it was touching on that nostalgic style of picture where it's like the 40s, the 50s. And they took that video game that came out not too long ago and made it into a TV show. And the TV show actually isn't that bad. It's fairly funny. It's like your classic old-timey TV shows with like the lessons learned and stuff, but it has a bit of a darker motif to it. One I would definitely recommend. The next one, of course, is Stranger Things Season 4. We all heard about the hype for Stranger Things, and it was a really fantastic season, in my opinion. They did a really good job building up the story and kind of tying a lot of things in. It was all around well done. And it brought back Kate Bush's song. Another show is Dead End Paranormal Park. So this is more of like a kiddie TV show, I guess, if you want to call it. But their newest season came out this year. And I kind of got into it this year, both seasons. And it's very good in the sense of the main character is actually transgender and is actually voiced by a transgendered person. And it just deals with like the struggles of being transgender and dealing with family stressors and stuff, but also a lot of other kooky things happening, like paranormal things happening at an amusement park. Definitely one I'd recommend. And finally, this is the TV show that did not come out this year, but I just dipped my toes into it not too long ago, and I'm really liking it, is Pretty Little Liars Original Sin. So I'm not sure if you're like me that watched all the original Pretty Little Liars seasons. I enjoyed it because it created a lot of tension. It's your classic teen drama. And this show kind of brings back that feel, but in a darker way, and completely just kind of changes everything about it. I will say, like everything else, it's a cheesy, cliche teenage drama with a hint of mystery, very much like how the original Pretty Little Liars were. And I'm enjoying it so far, so a definite recommend. Next, let's move on to books. All right, so I have 3 books I'm going to talk about. So I had started a book club this year, and we read a book every month. Now, none of these books are going to be from this year. They're going to be classics. But there were 3 classics that really stuck with me that I wanted to talk about. The first one being The Phantom of the Opera. So this was one I chose, so I'm a bit partial to it. And I just really enjoyed reading the book since I knew about the original 1940s or 30s film, as well as the movie that came out, like the musical movie. So reading the book just got to give me a more in-depth understanding of how the story is actually originally meant to be. And it's super interesting. A definite recommend. Another one is Jane Eyre. Now listen, many of the people in my book club will know I wasn't a fan of Jane Eyre. And the reason for it is because I really didn't care about Jane throughout the entire book. But I will give it credit. Charlotte Bronte did do a good job building characters as well as telling the story. She did a fantastic job in the sense of it was kind of going throughout her life, and she did keep it somewhat interesting throughout, even though there were some parts that I found extremely boring. Also, it's a thick book, so I'm just proud that I was able to fully read it. The last book I'm going to talk about is To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, To Kill a Mockingbird was a fantastic book. I had seen the movie before, the original classic, but I had never read the book before. So it was another book that was suggested in our book club. And after I read that book, I was like, wow, this book is fantastic. Definitely a high recommend, in my opinion, something that you should for sure check out. Now we're going to talk about songs. So there were quite a few songs that had come out this year, and I didn't end up jumping on the train of the 2022 songs really this year. I ended up listening to more of the songs I preferred, but there were a few that stood out to me. So the first one obviously being Rihanna's Lift Me Up. It's the first time we've heard a Rihanna song in such a long time. So it was a big deal to me because I'm a huge Rihanna fan, and it's a good song. So that's one of them. The next one is I'm Good by David Guetta and BB Rexa. Now, I'm not saying it's a good song, because it is, but it isn't. But it just has this tune that gets stuck in your ear, and it's a play on, because they obviously use like the same beat and the tone of I'm Blue by Eiffel 65. And it just is super catchy. Definite interesting one that impacted me. Another one is Everything But You by Clean Bandit. Now, anyone that knows me knows I'm a huge fan of Clean Bandit, and this was one of their latest songs that came out this year. The song is very nice, very melodic and beautiful, and you have to check out that music video. It is beautiful. And last but certainly not least, I already kind of touched on it in the TV shows, Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush. Didn't come out this year, but it got a surge in popularity, and everyone was listening to that song, and it is such a nice, beautiful song. Highly recommend it. Now we're going to touch on some darker things, which is the news headlines. I wanted to try and keep it as bubbly as possible, but we do have to acknowledge some major news things that have happened. COVID being obviously another major one still, since it is now it's our third year in COVID right now, and it's still there. We're still in the pandemic. It hasn't been changed by the World Health Organization. So that's still top of our minds. Another thing that I have to obviously touch on is the invasion of Ukraine by Russia and how that war is still continuing. Another one is that there's been a huge surge in cyber attacks this year. A lot of companies were held cyber hostage, and it just kind of opened our eyes to needing to make sure that we're extra secure and protected, and that we're protecting our information. Another one is that hybrid work is here to stay. People automatically thought once the pandemic had originally started, it was going to be quick, short, and then we were all going back into the office. Then hybrid work became more and more, and now hybrid is the new normal, which is sometimes at work, sometimes at home. So that's a big thing that happened this year. Another one is obviously Elon Musk now owning Twitter. And one that's more personal for myself, as I live in the nation's capital in Canada, is the Freedom Convoy that happened in February of this year and the occupation that happened downtown. That was very impactful for me. So those are the main things that happened this year that really stuck with me throughout the year. And I just wanted to do a bit of self-reflection about those things and how every year there's going to be harder, more difficult news stories to take in. And it was interesting. Not too long ago this year, I was going through my Facebook feed and just going through old posts that I had from years ago. And it was so interesting because a post from 2016 was if 2016 was this horror movie, it was all these major news stories that were happening that were terrifying at the time. Then 2020, major scary news stories. And now we're in 2022 with other scary news stories. So unfortunately, every year comes with scary news stories. So I just want to acknowledge that as devastating as these news stories are, it is part of our lives, and we want to understand them and acknowledge them, but also turn our attention to nicer things as well to try and boost our energy and boost our spirits up, which for me was clearly the movies, the TV shows, and the songs that I talked about, as well as the books. Might be a distraction from everyday life, but I will take it. Now for 2023, I am hoping for a wonderful year, lots of wonderful memories with family, friends, and my partner. And I'm just wishing everyone a happy 2023. I think it will be a good year. We say that every year, but you never know. Maybe this one, it'll stick. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video of wrapping up 2022. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a like, comment down below, and subscribe. And let me know what 2022 pop culture events really impacted you this year. And we'll see you in the new year. Bye!